Yes, so here we are talking about untriggering the triggers. Here we are speaking to that place in us. So first let me start by defining what I mean by triggers to make sure we're on the same page with all this. What we're talking about is those times when something happens. Like the moment earlier, you were doing great. You were in a good mood. Life was going along fine. And then an event occurs. That event could be something inside in your work, inside yourself, or in the work that you're doing. It may be that you got cut off in traffic. It could be your loved one did something, or your kids, or it could be a phone call you got. It could be any event, but that event occurs. And then all of a sudden, you go from being this person who was just feeling hunky-dory and life was just going along fine, to all of a sudden feeling all this tension inside yourself and upset and to the degree that it actually changes you. You feel like something else is taking charge. You feel like something else is now in charge of you, like you're possessed. You're no longer the same person you were just a moment earlier. You're this other person. And you're acting in ways that you don't want to. You're feeling in ways that you don't want to. And it feels like you don't have control to gain back what it is you just lost. Some people call them buttons. Some people call them triggers. Once they're pushed, it's as if an alien being takes over. That is what I am describing here as triggers, so that we know what we're talking about when we're looking at untriggering them. So like I say, some people call them buttons. And there's lots of folks who say that the only way to handle these things is to dig deep within the wounds that are there and heal those wounds. And as those wounds heal, the triggers become less and less active. They become less and less dynamic. They become less and less in charge. And I am not here stating that that's not a good idea. I am certainly not saying don't do that. In fact, it's a very plausible way to go. But recently I have discovered something new. I've discovered a new way of being with these triggers. That is what inspired this talk. It's what inspired me to want to be here with you today and speak of this, was what happened recently between Ashley and I. Now, the funniest part of relationships is if only one person's triggered and the other one's not, it usually goes okay, because the one not triggered can usually support the other person through whatever they're triggered about, and the person triggered can feel the love from that person, and everything seems to work out just fine. Where things start getting a little sticky is when both people are triggered. Then nobody's feeling the love. Then it's all about yin, 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 right? And so there's Ashley and I, both very triggered, both with our walls up, because I don't know if this happens to you, but when I'm triggered, this wall comes up, and I am behind this wall, and I let nothing in, and I'm not coming out because it's not safe out there. You know, one of the things I've learned about my own triggers is that they are the most scariest of things at the most scariest of times, to step out from inside this wall that I built to protect myself. And so Ashley and I were in a state where we were both behind our walls. We were not being loving. We were both being defensive. And I was sitting there, and because of something I speak about a lot here, is spiritual practice. And so one thing I've noticed about spiritual practice and its foundation is that an event can occur when we are solidly rooted in our spiritual foundation of knowing we are the divine, and that event doesn't bother us. Then actually it only throws us off when we're a little thrown off anyway, not so rooted in the foundation. We can think everything is hunky-dory as we're rushing along through our day. But I promise you, if you take a look at what has occurred for you, it's probably somewhat similar to what happens to me, which is that the exact same event won't bother me at all when I'm spiritually rooted. But if I'm not spiritually rooted, if I'm just in a good mood, but not spiritually rooted, that event will set me off. And then I'll be blaming the other person, whether it's Ashley, my son, or anybody, about how I was in a good mood just a minute ago and you now put me in a bad mood. So there's Ashley and I in trigger mode. And one of the things that I've developed through the years because of my spiritual practice is what I call the observer. It's this other being that's me, that watches over me as I am doing whatever it is I'm doing. And it took time to develop this part of myself. It didn't come naturally. It didn't come easily. I had heard somebody else talk about it. So in my spiritual practice, I practiced developing this observer who has lately popped up to observe me as I am acting out in my trigger, which is usually getting quiet behind my wall. You know, when Ashley and I get in that space, we're not, yelling and screaming or anything like that. We're usually just being defensively behind our walls, not being very loving. And it still doesn't feel good. So here we are in this space. And here's this observer I got talking to me. And he's talking away, and for years this observer has told me, you don't have to behave this way. But it has not ever, ever, ever gotten me to shift from that place until yesterday morning. For the very first time in my life, a shift occurred in me that I had never experienced before that then led to a healing. It was miraculous. And where it came out of was thinking about the inspiration that Ashley is to me, the inspiration that our relationship is. So that's why I opened with the question, what inspires you? Because what has happened for me is I have learned that inspiration is not just a force to bring us forward into our action and dreams, but actually has a healing quality to it. That inspiration actually heals. And the more this voice said to me, all the things I knew that were inspiring about my relationship with Ashley, the more it drew forth in me something that wanted to step through this wall, step through this place that was holding me back. Until finally, I stepped out and I spoke kindly and lovingly and was able to ask of her what I have never had the wherewithal to ask of anyone I have ever been in relationship ever. I asked her to put her arms around me, even though she was mad at me, to please put her arms around me. And to also remember what it is we meant to each other. That was incredibly scary to me. Because she could have easily rejected me. And yet it came from a place of inspiration that then inspired Ash to put her arms around me. And before I knew it, we were in this incredible healing place. The miraculousness of its healing nature was earth-shattering to me. And so I wanted to share that with you today because I want you to know that that's possible. That it is possible to heal a trigger not just by delving into it and digging it out and looking at the wounds, but simply by being inspired. And when I say simply, I don't mean to say that it's easy. I'm simply saying that it's simple, not easy. But it is incredible, the sensation of being inspired into action that brought me forth out of my shell, out of who I am normally being during a trigger, into a place of wonder, joy, and healing. It was this milestone in my life that I wanted so much to bring to you today because it meant so much to me. Each of us has this part of us that we can cultivate. Again, it starts with spiritual practice. And I highly recommend doing spiritual practice way more than once a day, way more than just in the morning and in the evening. But during the day, whenever you need to root yourself, because this is a rooted thing. When we are not rooted, we are easily blown off course, right? It's the trees that are rooted the deepest, that are never dug out during a tornado or a hurricane. When life becomes a storm, it is our roots in our divinity that holds us to where we can be. So spiritual practice, that's step one. Step two is cultivating that inner voice that knows you're magnificent, that knows you're divine, that knows the beauty of who you are and who you have come here to be. Cultivate that voice. And cultivating it when you're in a good space is way easier than trying to cultivate it when you're triggered. But if you cultivate it to the point where it can talk to you when you're triggered, maybe for you, you'll be able to listen to it right away. For me, my cultivated voice has been talking to me for years, and I have not been able to listen until I reached this third thing, which is inspiration. Have your voice tell you what inspires you. Have it speak to that place in you that can raise you up. Find those things that inspire you so deeply, whether it be about your partner, or if somebody's cutting you off in traffic, whether it be about being in the flow. Remember times you let go and how magnificent that was for you. Cultivate with those inspiring ideas, concepts, images, so that you can recall them when you need them most. Because it turns out that inspiration doesn't just bring you forward, it actually heals. Look to inspiration. It is an astounding healing quality. And it is there for each and every one of us. All right, let's do a meditation on this. Sit back, take a deep breath, and relax. Imagine yourself on a path. It is the perfect path. Beneath your feet, the sights, the sounds, how it feels against your skin. Maybe it's in the woods. Maybe it's on the street. Maybe it's in the clouds. Maybe it's in your home. It is your path. It is the perfect path. You come to a clearing. It is the perfect clearing. It is your sanctuary. It is where you feel safe. It is so beautiful, so rich, with the light, sound, and feel that it's just home to you. And there's a chair there. It is the perfect chair. And as you go sit in it, feel the Ah, sitting in that chair. And from this place, ask yourself, what inspires me? And answer the question. And immerse yourself in the answer. Immerse yourself in that inspiration. Immerse yourself as if it were a bath. Let your inspiration bathe over you. Be absorbed by every cell of your body. And from this place of inspiration, remember the last time you were triggered. The last time your button was pushed. And bring it into this space of inspiration. Imagine how different that experience might have been. This inspired. Now love yourself. Feel yourself, love yourself inside this inspiration. And if you have any residue about that trigger, forgive yourself and whoever else needs forgiving. Let it go. Rise to the inspiration. Take another deep breath and let it go. Thank yourself for this experience of untriggering a trigger through inspiration. And when you're ready, open your eyes.